I have the pleasure to present now Dr. Clare Tibodeaux, Director of Scientific Affairs, Cures Within Reach, Cure Accelerator. It's very interesting, really, organization or foundation, and yesterday we had nice events with repurposed drugs, and this is one of the very important new approaches. It's not new, it is old, but it needs some new people to adopt it and to find finance for it, find funds, and to apply this. So thank you for your Cure Within Reach, and thank you for all what you are doing. Please come.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very excited to be here today, and I want to thank the Harvard Global Health Catalyst Summit for inviting us here, to Will Ngwa and to Lydia Sana for organizing this, and to all of you for staying here a little past 4 to hear my talk. So thank you. Again, my name is Clare Tibodeaux. I'm the Director of Scientific Affairs with Cures Within Reach. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about our organization, about repurposing research, or as you heard it referenced as in the previous video, teaching old drugs, new tricks, and an initiative that we are just launching for the low and lower middle income countries. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Cures Within Reach, we're a nonprofit based in Chicago. We've been around for about 15 years now, working specifically in repurposing research. So what we do is we leverage existing science and medicine so that we can use that to drive more treatments to more patients more quickly. We have a couple different roles in our as an organization. The first thing we are is a value-driving catalyst of this research. We bring the many different stakeholders together to make sure that these important research opportunities happen. We're also a value-driving facilitator. We have an online platform, which I'll talk about a little bit later. It's called Cure Accelerator, where researchers can put their repurposing research ideas, and we can make sure that they all come together, bringing together other stakeholders in that. And we also foster conversation and collaboration around repurposing research. So before we get any further, I just want to have some definitions out there so that we're all making sure we're talking about the same thing. When we talk about repurposing, what we mean is taking drugs, devices, nutraceuticals, and diagnostics that have been approved by a regulatory agency. It could be the FDA, it could be the EMA, it could be a different governmental organization. But these are therapies that have been proven to be safe and effective for humans. And the research we support then tests those same therapies in a different indication. This is different from repositioning or rescue, which is when a drug has made it through some clinical phase of clinical trials. Maybe it made it to phase 2, but then was shelved because it wasn't effective in a particular indication. And then it's taken off the shelf and used in a different indication. So that's a therapy that's never been approved. That's repositioning or rescue. Commercial opportunities are when there's ability to make a profit for an organization by bringing a repurposed therapy through regulatory approval. And the majority of what we fund tend to be philanthropic. So these are opportunities where a drug does not necessarily have commercial value, a therapy does not necessarily have commercial value, but by supporting the research, it's available for doctors and their patients to use off-label. So we're providing the kind of the studies, the research that proves that it can work in different indications. So we started off as an organization that focused on translational research in general. And what we found was when we looked back at all the studies that we had funded, of the ones, only 10 happened to be repurposing, not because we meant to fund repurposing research, but because we thought these were really great projects. And of those 10, 4 were already making an impact in the clinic. And that's when we had our aha moment, where we were saying, okay, if we really want to make patient impact, repurposing is the way to do it. And that's when we began to focus on that specifically. We know that repurposing is faster to clinic because there is more known about safety, and the research can be done at a much lower cost than de novo drug development. So it really makes a lot of sense to us to focus on repurposing specifically to create that patient impact. Now, repurposing, as Ahmed said, is not a new idea. It's been around for a while, and this is just a table to show some examples of how repurposing has happened. But it's not necessarily been discussed as a real strategy to address unmet patient needs. And you know, to me that seems strange because repurposing does have a lot of different advantages. First of all, it can be done in almost any disease. We've heard some talk here today about, you know, non-communicable diseases versus communicable diseases in low and lower middle income countries. Repurposing can slot in any of these conditions. And we're really working with evidence-based outcomes. Because these drugs are available for doctors and patients to use right now, the research is really based on clinical evidence, you know, what we see in the clinic. And that clinical evidence can come even before a mechanism of action is known. Sometimes we're not exactly sure why a repurposed therapy works, and to be honest, patients don't really care. They only care that it's helping them. And so if a clinical impact is seen, then researchers can go back and start to look at mechanism of action and see what's going on and then build from there. Again, if it's a generic drug that's already available, off-label use is a great way for a therapy to be adopted, and I'll give an example of that in a little bit. And in the United States, we do have an accelerated approval through the FDA when we're talking about repurposed therapies. So there are some really strong advantages. However, there are also some challenges that go with repurposing. Unlike oncology or neurology, there's really no centralized way that repurposing is done in research institutions that where people organize around repurposing. They tend to happen in little pockets in universities. It'd be great if one day we could have a department of repurposing just like any other indication. And when we are talking about this kind of research, finding financial support can be very challenging. One example we like to give, completely made up example, is what if there was a researcher who had the idea that aspirin could cure lupus? That'd be really great for everybody who had lupus, but who's going to fund that research when you could walk into any pharmacy and buy any brand of aspirin off the shelf? So that's an extreme example, but it really does illustrate some of the financial challenges that can come when we're talking about repurposing research. The next one is one that always gets my goat. A lot of times, repurposing is not seen as innovative. If a researcher is taking a drug that's been around for 30, 40 years, you know, sometimes when it's a project that they're pitching to a funding organization or maybe trying to get approval to study within their own department even, they may be told, you know what, that's not really innovative. What's the new drug? What's the exciting new breakthrough that you're going to find? And while I'm not at all saying that those types of breakthroughs aren't important, we believe that repurposing research is just as innovative. And then finally, sometimes it can be challenging to change clinical practice without doing these kind of confirmatory research studies so that the data can be published in a medical journal, so that physicians can look to that research, find that data, and feel comfortable recommending it for their patients. So as I said, Cures Within Reach has been doing this for a number of years now, and we've been able to really make some patient impact. These are just some metrics about the impact of our work. There's a couple that I'd like to point out to you in particular. We've funded nearly 50 different diseases. We are a disease-agnostic organization, so to us, it doesn't matter what disease, it just matters if it's repurposed research. We've funded over 80 projects, and we've invested over $6 million in funding. But that $6 million has led to $47 million in follow-on funding. So again, we are the catalyst. We come in at an early stage, usually that first-in-human concept, testing these repurposed therapies. And then with the data from the funding that Cures Within Reach provides, researchers are able to go on to the NIH, to disease-specific organizations, to other philanthropic funders, and get the money they need to do a larger study. The other thing I would like to point out that of our 13, that of all of our projects that we funded, we have 13 different diseases that have been improved through work done by Cures Within Reach. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of those for you right now. The first was one of our earliest success stories. This is a pediatric autoimmune disease. It's a rare disease. And these kids who have this, it's ALPS, autoimmune lymphoproliferative syndrome, but I'll just call it ALPS for short. They get very ill. They spend a lot of months or a lot of days per month in the hospital. The healthcare costs are quite large to take care of these children, and they don't really have a very good outlook. We funded a researcher at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia who had this idea to take sirolimus, which is a drug used for kidney transplants, to help these kids. And what he found out was that by giving these kids 2 pills a day, they were able to go ahead and lead almost normal lives. And in this picture, you see Nicole. You see her up in the top left corner as a young child undergoing treatment, and now you see her as an 18-year-old who's really gone on to grow and thrive. And so, we're really proud of that work. In the cancer community, we had a project at the University of Chicago that was actually using a device. They took a device that had been approved for treating laser cysts and tried it in prostate cancer, early stage prostate cancer. And what they found was that by using this device, they were able to do a phase 1 study that showed that a minimally invasive procedure was able to produce durable responses in these men who had early stage prostate cancer. Again, using the data from that study, they were able to write a grant at the NIH and received almost $650,000 in funding to do a larger confirmatory trial. And this procedure is now being used at the University of Chicago and other institutions. So I mentioned Cure Accelerator. That is our online platform dedicated to repurposing research. Again, we have over 300 projects posted on Cure Accelerator. We post our request for funding proposals there, and we have many different types of projects, including a large number of oncology. Currently, 32% of our 22 ongoing projects come from the oncology space. That's 7 total. You can see them listed here, and they cover brain cancer, lung cancer, thyroid cancer, and side effects from cancer treatment. Again, we're disease agnostic, so this is the range of all kinds of different disease areas that we fund. And you'll notice that right now, our funding is limited to North America and Europe. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, how we're going to change that. And again, our recently completed research. So back in 2017, we held one of our Cure Accelerator live events, which is our philanthropic pitch competition, where PIs come, they present their repurposing research ideas, and the attendees will then vote on the winning project. This was focused strictly in cancer, repurposing research in cancer. We had a number of different institutions and investigators apply, 5 finalists, And we were able not only to fund the winner, which was the metastatic thyroid cancer project, but then we were able to eventually work and find funding for our runner-up, which is a brain cancer trial. Now, last night we had an event just like that, except the projects were focused on making impact in low and lower middle income countries. So, quick show of hands, who here attended last night? All right, that's a pretty good portion. Well, thank you all for coming out. I hope you found it as exciting and engaging as I did. Those of you who were there know that the winning project, it was the project that repurposed fecal microbiota transplantation for severe acute malnutrition in South Africa. And this is a really great project looking at the difference of gut microbiota and kids who are treated with nutritional therapy but still don't recover from this malnutrition. And so now they're using FMT as a supplement to help these kids thrive, as the name of the study says. So thank you all for coming out. And this was our first foray in working in low and lower middle income countries, and a lead up into our new pilot program, which is called the ReGrow pilot. ReGrow stands for Repurposing Grants for the Rest of the World. And our idea with this project is to provide repurposing research grants to clinicians and researchers who are in these low and lower middle income countries to build capacity within the countries and to find treatments for those patients in those countries. So why ReGrow? We were actually approached by one of our farmer partners with this idea of really leveraging the power of repurposing in low and lower middle income countries, because the need for scientific capacity building and access to treatment are highest in these countries, yet most of the research investment is focused in other parts of the world. And by providing these kinds of grants, we can do a lot of different meet a lot of different goals. We can build capacity for research in these countries, we can solve problems locally, and support retention of scientific talent within low and lower middle income countries. So we spent about 6 months working with partners from global health academic programs, working with philanthropic and not-for-profit partners, industry partners, and others to kind of talk about what might this program look like. And we came up with some ideas around some parameters. So for the pilot, eligible projects will serve any unmet medical need. Again, keeping the disease-agnostic idea of the Cures Within Reach mission, while at the same time, we don't really know what we don't know, and we want to make sure that we capture as wide a net as possible. Again, these can be diseases like malaria, TB, cancer, heart conditions, rare disease, whatever a researcher in low and lower middle income countries sees as a need. Projects will utilize generic or off-patent drugs only, and will also include nutraceuticals and indigenous medicines in these projects, as long as the therapy is available in country. We want to do research that can then actually move into the clinic and not have to worry about the drug pipeline. We're looking for clinical research projects with English submissions and submitting using our Cure Accelerator platform. The types of institutions we're going to work with is what we've come up with a term as being research ready. So again, it's the applying researcher must come from a low or lower middle income country as defined by the World Bank, having received previous external third-party clinical research funding, have an IRB or an equivalent in place, follow WHO's GLC, GCLP, and GCP guidelines, and then have past or current experience with human or clinical research. Again, since this is a pilot, we want to make sure that we do everything that we can to make it as successful as possible. So we are in the beginning stages of our Regrow pilot program, and we have a few next steps, and I promise they're not all ones. On my computer at home, it did say 1, 2, 3. Although I guess you could say they're all top priorities, I guess. The first thing is outreach to NGOs for best practices and for connections to institutions in low and lower middle income countries. We're the first to admit that we are new to this world, and we need your help. We need your help in making those connections. We need your help in understanding best practices and making sure that we do everything we can to make the launch of our request for proposals when that happens as successful as possible. In addition, we're looking for researchers, clinicians who have experience to help us review the proposals when they come in. Again, we're a disease-agnostic organization. We do understand North America and Europe, but as we've heard here just in the talks, cancer is not always the same in the US as it might be in Africa. So we are looking to those who have that experience who can help us understand those differences. And then finally, and last but not least, we are raising money for this Regrow pilot right now. Our goal is to get enough funds going so that we can have at least 3 initial grants of roughly $25,000 to $50,000 each. So again, I just want to thank everybody for their attention. We'd love to talk to you more about this pilot. If you are interested in getting involved, if you have connections, if you know people, please let us know. You can see more information at our website. My information is here, and I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to learn more. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. And this is really a new partnership with Repurpose and Cure Within Reach, with Harvard Global Health Catalyst and with the win-win. It is really applied way of win-win.